Right. Okay. Picking up on something you talked about earlier, um, one thing that's really puzzling is this transition between empty, what you call being or empty consciousness, consciousness not realized, to going to any kind of organization of consciousness. That's such a puzzling problem. Do you have thoughts as to how that happens?
The way we're doing it is we have this mathematical model we call a conscious agent, and we can talk about very simple conscious agents that, a conscious agent might only have one experience. Like this agent only sees red. That's all it can experience. And another agent only experiences green, and so forth. And then we can look at how they interact. And it's a theorem of our mathematics that when two agents interact, or even just when you have two agents or n agents, those n agents also are an agent. That just follows from the mathematical definition of an agent. They satisfy the definition, so they are an agent. That means if I say I start off with a countable set of agents, countable set being like this, the infinity of the integers, 1, 2, 3, up through infinity. That's the smallest infinity. What mathematicians call A left 0, the smallest infinity. So suppose we start off with a bunch of simple agents and we have A left 0 infinity of them. Well, our theory says that any subset of those agents is also an agent. So that means we have to look at all possible subsets. That's called the power set. So you look at the collection of all subsets of a set, that's called the power set. Well, the power set of the infinity A left 0 is a new infinity. It's a higher infinity called A left 1. So it's a much bigger infinity. And then all those agents take their power set, we get A left 2, and then A left 3. And so our theory makes a very, very clear prediction that there's one agent, because whenever you have any agents, they also are an agent. So in some sense, our theory says, yes, there is one agent, and only one agent, if you wish. On the other hand, it says, but you cannot describe that agent, because to describe it, you would have to go all the way up Cantor's hierarchy. This is called Cantor's hierarchy of all these infinities. So we're supposed that, in 100 years, we're at A left 5 billion. Well, amazing. Wow, we've gone up 5 billion levels of infinity, and we've studied all the possible combinations of conscious agents up to that level and understand their properties. Incredible time to break out the champagne. But our mathematics is there saying, great accomplishment, but you have to go to infinity. Cantor's hierarchy has infinite number of levels, so you'll never get there. So some people might say, why don't you start with a theory of the one, and then just show how all of our consciousnesses are projections of that one? And I wish I could, but we can't. It's mathematically impossible. You can't do it. And so, but that's just no surprise, because as we talked about before, there is no scientific theory of everything. There is no scientific theory that could explain everything. You can only explain everything except the assumptions of your theory. And a new theory that explains those assumptions will have its own assumptions, ad infinitum. So the nice thing, what I like about scientific theories, a good scientific theory is mathematically explicit and says explicitly what the limits of that theory are. In our case, the theory will say, you got to A left 5 trillion, congratulations, you only have an infinite number of hierarchies left in Cantor's hierarchy to go. It tells you exactly its limits, the limits of what you've done so far. And that's what you really want, is for a theory to tell you its limits. That's a good cure for dogmatism.
And your theory also doesn't posit anything about selfhood, right? Selfhood or identity or memory or all the other sort of elementary cognitive properties that people put into the downscaled version of these things.
That's a good point. So also in the spirit of Occam's razor, where you want to have as few assumptions as possible, essentially our only assumptions are that there are conscious experiences and that they probabilistically influence the probability of other conscious experiences happening. That's it. So there is, as you said, no notion of self, learning, memory, problem solving, intelligence, and so forth. But it's trivial with our Markovian dynamics of conscious agents, where the Markovian dynamics is how conscious experiences probabilistically affect the occurrence of other probabilistic experiences. So it's a Markovian dynamics. So with that, dynamics is trivial to show that it's computationally universal. So anything you can do with neural networks, you can do with networks of conscious agents. So we can build, so even though it's only started off with very simple assumptions of experiences, of influencing experiences, if you want, you can build up a theory of self or learning, memory, problem solving, intelligence, all that stuff. You can do that. But it's not limited to computation. The measurable sets on which the Markovian kernels are defined need not be computable sets. And so so we're not limited to computation. So it's so yeah. I think that you want your theory to force you to do all that work. If I had a theory of consciousness that said, well, and so I'm assuming not only experiences and probabilistic influences, but also a self and learning and memory and problem solving, and all these things are part of my assumptions. Well, then I've got my own stipulation. I mean, I just made a big deal about the stipulation problem of consciousness for all my brilliant colleagues, right? They're stipulating space-time, they're stipulating IIT, then they have to stipulate the conscious experiences that are associated with it. They're stipulating everything. Well, I don't want to stipulate everything. But you have to stipulate something. So you have to stipulate the absolute minimum. And so we're trying to be absolute minimum conscious experiences and probabilistic influences among them, and then boot up everything. And then once we boot up consciousness, project it down to decorated permutations and show how space-time is just a user interface that some conscious agents employ to interact with other conscious agents. But it's one of countless interfaces. This is not anything special. There are countless interfaces you could use. Space-time just happens to be one. So it's not the final reality. It's just one kind of headset for a particular kind of game. That's all.